Tupac and DMX are two of the most notable names to ever come out of hip-hop. But what if I told you that these two nearly clashed? Let's take you back into the mid-1990s. Around 1994 and 1995, up-and-coming rapper DMX was certainly a prospect in the rap game. DMX had the streets of New York on lock, and labels were gunning to sign DMX and his Rough Rider entourage. One of those labels was in fact Death Row Records, because Suge planned on creating a branch of Death Row for the East Coast called Death Row East, after New York hip-hop took the throne from the West Coast in '95, led by Biggie and Bad Boy Records. Not only was Suge trying to take all the artists from the East to compete with Bad Boy, but head of talent at Death Row, Dr. Dre, also took an interest in DMX and the Rough Riders. At the time, Tupac and Suge were mutual friends and had business in the past. Throughout 1994, Tupac was going through his legal troubles with the assault case, and his money was running dry from all the expenses put into the case. Plus, Tupac wasn't really dropping any solo music. Suge Knight had been following Tupac's career for quite some time now, and finally decided to work with him. In '94, Suge went to New York to have a meeting with Irv Gotti and the founders of Rough Riders Entertainment, Y&D. Suge had a meeting with them in New York about potentially signing DMX and the rest of Rough Riders to Death Row. Suge actually pulled up to the studio in Yonkers to have a talk with the Rough Riders, to which they showed him love and agreed to schedule another meeting, this time out west. Ironically enough, somebody else was present at this meeting, and that was Tupac himself, and these are actual photos from that day. Suge had contacted Tupac, who was living in New York at the time, because he was filming the movie Above the Rim in '93 and just wrapped up the filming. Suge wanted Tupac to do a record on Death Row's up-and-coming soundtrack, Murder Was the Case. Suge paid Tupac $200,000 for the track, and this track would end up being titled Life's So Hard. Now, despite Suge paying Pac $200,000 for the record, they ended up not even using the song on the soundtrack. This is when Pac would take a liking to Suge. The track would later appear on the gang-related soundtrack in 1997. The version that appeared on the soundtrack was actually different from the original version. Nonetheless, this would be the foundation that would build Suge and Pac's friendship. At this time, Pac was still signed to TNT Records and Interscope. Pac was having trouble dropping music because his music wasn't really seen as marketable, and had to scrap a ton of music because of being told to change it when he went to turn in his albums. Suge knew that Tupac would potentially be a perfect fit at Death Row. After the meeting in the studio in Yonkers, Tupac was still fighting this assault case for the better part of a year, and in December of '94, Tupac would be acquitted of 3 counts of assault and the associated gun charges, but convicted of 2 counts of first-degree abuse. Pac's bond was set at $3 million. Tupac was unable to post the $3 million bond to keep himself free until the sentencing, so he would eventually surrender himself to authorities at the Bellevue Hospital jail ward on December 23, 1994. On February 7, 1995, Tupac was officially sentenced to 18 months to 4.5 years in prison and would be transferred to Clinton Correctional Facility to serve his time. While Tupac was in jail, he would drop his 3rd album, Me Against the World, on March 14, 1995, which would sell exponentially more than his previous 2 albums, selling 240,000 in the first week. For reference, Pac's first 2 albums didn't even crack 50K in the first week, so clearly, being in the news every day for this ongoing assault case was actually giving him a ton of publicity. Eventually, in the summer of '95 is when the East Coast versus West Coast rivalry would begin brewing after Suge Knight dissed Puffy at the '95 Source Awards. Suge was absolutely tight that Biggie and Bad Boy had become the hottest label in hip-hop, dethroning Death Row. Suge also beefed with Puffy because every time that Puffy was out on the West, Suge would take care of him and his people free of charge, out of love and respect. But once Puffy blew up with his new Bad Boy artist, Biggie, Suge wanted to book Biggie for some shows, but Puffy charged Suge to do so, despite Suge hooking up Puffy when he was out on the West. So that also didn't sit well with Suge. After Biggie's massive takeover, Suge was on the search for new artists to take the throne back and make Death Row the #1 label again. At the '95 Source Awards, Suge extended the branch out the East, which eventually led Suge and Dre to form Death Row East in order to sign all of the New York rappers that were prospering crazy in '94 and '95. The guy Suge was looking for to destroy Biggie and Bad Boy was Tupac. In October of 1995, Suge Knight arranged for the posting of a $1.4 million bond for Tupac. After that, Pac was free and had joined the Death Row family. While incarcerated, Tupac would begin to see Biggie and Bad Boy as his enemy. after rumors got around that Biggie and Puffy set him up at the Quad Studios in 93. What also didn't help was the release of the track Who Shot Ya in early 95, which Tupac saw as a diss towards himself. Pac got out of prison angry at the world after being falsely accused of assault and thrown in prison, shot 5 times, from who he believes was set up by New York and Biggie. Pac took all of that anger and declared war on Biggie, Bad Boy, and the rest of New York. In early 96, Suge would call in a meeting with Rough Riders at a hotel in LA to discuss potentially signing them to Death Row, making DMX and Rough Riders the face of Death Row East because DMX's buzz was increasing. In 1996, Irv Gotti, DMX, and the owners of Rough Riders Entertainment then flew out to LA to meet with Suge Knight to further discuss potentially signing them to Death Row. The meeting took place in a hotel with Suge Knight and Tupac being present at the hotel, and this would be where Tupac and DMX would have their one and only ever encounterment. Ultimately, the Rough Riders decided not to go forward with the deal because they didn't want just Dr. Dre being the one that handled all the production. They wanted their producers to also have shine. After the meeting, DMX and Tupac would have a brief encounter, greeting each other in the hallway. According to Rough Riders CEO, in a later interview, he said, quote, "I was the only one to get X and Pac together to actually get in the hallway and have a conversation. Death Row called us to come through because they came to the studio in Yonkers, New York, and I talked to Suge, and he came through and I showed him love. From there, he flew us out west, and we came out and I hooked up Pac and X at the hotel. But we ain't get to the battle, but we seen Dr. Dre and all of them. Suge tried to give us a deal, but we didn't like the deal, so we didn't cross over. Because if I would have did that deal, I wouldn't have been Rough Riders," I told Suge. "I know Dre's the man, but I got my own producers and everything, so I can't do a deal with you and Dre's running everything. He's got full access to all of the producers, but my producers and all of us, we work hard here, so I can't just have them be exclusive just to your team, and my team is not given the proper situations, so we don't do the deal. So the beauty of it is, we didn't do the deal, and now we came out with Rough Riders, and I was lucky I made that decision so we could become what we are." Now, there's another side of this story between DMX and Tupac that is floating around. Some suggest that Tupac allegedly did not come downstairs to the hotel lobby to even meet DMX, and this allegedly rubbed X the wrong way, which would eventually lead to dissing. Now, there is no actual evidence to back this side of the story up, because not only did the Rough Riders CEO say that they greeted each other at the hotel, but DMX would later say this same sentiment in a later interview with Drink Champs in 2016.
I actually had a chance to see Pop.
Oh, word?
Walking. He said,
I never met Pop.
He said, oh my God. It's on Hammond Way off Sunset in LA.
Okay.
That hotel.
Okay.
And I saw him. He was a cool dude. Cool. He seemed cool.
Now, what year was this? You remember year?
I say like 96.
Oh, wow. Wow. You met real Pop.
Yeah.
That's right before he died.
Walking by himself.
That's right before
he
died in 97, right?
It was maybe 95. Maybe 95. Dre brought us out there. Dre forced us out there. And he walked past and I seen him. My man said, "What up?" And I'm like, "What up? What up?" Cool dude. In the heart.
In June of 1996, Tupac infamously released his classic diss track Hit 'Em Up. This diss track was primarily aimed at Biggie and Puffy. At the end of this track, Pac would go on a rant about Biggie and Bad Boy, then had some words for Mobb Deep. Tupac would then issue a challenge to anyone from New York who wants to bring it.
It's how we do it on our side. Any you from New York that want to bring it, bring it.
DMX would hear this and would decide to take Tupac's challenge and bring it. Sometime after Tupac dropped Hit 'Em Up, DMX would then spit a freestyle over LL Cool J's I Shot Ya beat. This freestyle was a response to Tupac and the whole West Coast. DMX starts off mentioning the West Coast, then says that he's on the best coast, referring to the East.
On that motherfucking West Coast shit. 'Cause I'm on the best coast, bitch.
DMX then possibly referenced the alleged rumor that Tupac was assaulted during his time in prison and questions why Tupac is talking crazy to the East Coast.
When in the back, lift your ass face down. Is on your mind. Talking that shit that you be talking.
Then DMX seemingly referenced Tupac being shot 5 times at the Quad Studios in late 93, which is the main reason why Tupac was even going at Biggie and the East Coast to begin with.
And I bet you wish you never got hit, 'cause you'd be walking, but shit happens and you done did your dirt.
Then X referenced Pac's days at the Baltimore School of Arts, where Pac performed plays and ballet, saying Pac was hiding his skirt, then saying that Pac's homies didn't know that he was a bitch in disguise, seemingly exposing Pac for not growing up thuggin', but yet claiming it on his records.
Niggas is wondering how the f you hid your skirt right under their eyes. That one of they mans was a in disguise.
X then references how Tupac was from Baltimore and not even from the West.
Let me holler at you, yo, the Baltimore shit. Yeah, I mean, I'm just robbing to eat.
DMX then references how Tupac seemingly transformed from a good kid at the Baltimore School of the Arts to a thug when he started rapping. Then DMX would directly name drop Tupac by name and says that it's gonna take everyone on the West Coast to barely move him.
Transforming that skills will get it quick. And yo, for real, that nigga Tupac can suck my dick. All them in the West Coast to barely move me.
X closes it out saying that Tupac and the rest of the West are basically asking for a nightmare by dissing New York.
East heard the West was craving for a night.
Shortly after this, DMX would do another freestyle called It's a Party featuring Doc Holliday, where he would once again spit this verse, dissing Tupac. This verse would later be used on his debut single, Get At Me Dog, but this wouldn't be released until 1998, and Tupac had already passed away in 96, so he changed the verse up, directing the disses towards K Solo instead. This track would end up on DMX's debut album, It's Dark and Hell Is Hot. DMX would do another freestyle in 1996, dissing Tupac. This time, he went real disrespectful, dissing him over the beat to Biggie's track, Who Shot Ya? First, he starts off by saying this.
Don't get stupid, you heard what I said. Who shot you? Oh, nigga, like you don't know.
Then DMX says that if Tupac wants more, then it'll be that, and he has a whole crew prepared.
Got joints that with one slug will take apart a door, and enough crazy niggas behind me to start a war.
Then says that in the dark, Tupac ain't nothing but little, compared to him, who actually grew up living that life that Pac claims.
And a vest won't do nothing but make you look a little thicker, cause in the dark you ain't nothing but a little nigga.
This verse would later appear on DMX's track Bring Your Whole Crew on his second 1998 album, Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. Tupac would never end up responding to this diss and ultimately ended up dying in September of 1996. Shortly after Tupac's death in late 96, DMX did another freestyle, this time over Dr. Dre's beat to his track Been There Done That. DMX was dissing Pac over a Dre beat, and who was Pac's enemy to his grave in 96? Dre. On this freestyle, DMX has a lot of references towards Tupac's music. He starts off by referencing Pac's track Hail Mary when he said this.
When they turn off the lights, be saying.
Then DMX grunts 4 times in this song, followed by the words Ain't No Saving You. If you know, Tupac was shot 4 times on the night that he died, so perhaps DMX was referencing that here.
Ain't no saving.
Then DMX referenced Pac's tracks So Many Tears and Dear Mama.
No matter how many tears your mom's cry, ain't gonna bring your ass back.
Then DMX goes real disrespectful to Pac when he referenced his death once again.
Do we bury him or burn him? Any suggestions? Either way, you up out of here for good.
At the end, DMX has another reference to Pac's track Hail Mary.
Illuminati. Enough a shotty on the body, enough a joint I talk.
With labels still gunning to sign DMX, he actually had a meeting with Puffy to discuss him potentially signing with Bad Boy. After all, the Lox would end up signing with Bad Boy, so it's only fitting to sign DMX as well, but Puffy would tell DMX during their meeting that he didn't see his voice as marketable. Talk about dropping the ball. DMX will later speak on this in his interview with Drink Champs.
And the Lox that got signed first to Puff, and D from Rough Riders, Darren, you know, he bought me, gave me the Puff, and one thing I respect about Puff, one thing I respect about him, and real shit, is that at least he told me to my face what he felt. And when D told Puff, he said, yo, if you like the Lox, you're gonna love X. And I spit or whatever, and he was like, his voice is too rough, he's not marketable. Didn't like it, but I had to respect it. Hold up. He came right behind and tried to clean up. So maybe 3 weeks later, when he found out I was getting signed for Def Jam, he was like, yo, I'll lace your pockets. I'll double what they gave you and lace your pockets. I'm like, nah, homie. Because if you didn't see the beast that I was
What point
then,
did he tell you that? What point?
I told you, like maybe 3 weeks after I got signed to Def Jam. He's like, yo, I'll lace your pockets. I'll double what they gave you and lace your pockets. I'm like, nah, I'm cool.
After Pac's death, DMX would take over hip-hop in the year of 1998 with his debut album, It's Dark and Hell is Hot. After DMX's major blow-up, people were quick to compare him to Tupac due to both having high energy on tracks, but personally, I don't see the comparison at all. And some go as far as to say that DMX was influenced by Tupac? This doesn't really make sense either, given that DMX was rapping in the late 80s. I also don't want to hear about DMX being influenced to rap about street life because of Tupac, like some do claim, because DMX really lived that life before Tupac even had an album out, doing bids in prison as a teenager, sticking people up and jacking cars.
Now people compare you to Tupac. What do you think about that? Is that cool?
I don't think about that.
You don't think about it?
Nah, I do what I do. I'm gonna go where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna be who I'm gonna be.
Right.
Love it. Go take it.
But you know, I'm thinking though, the comparison though is only because some of your vibe is similar. Not that you take anything from him, but you have that same kind of powerful driving energy and a real knowledge coming from your work. And there's certain
there was a
things.
void that he left open when he died.
Okay.
I don't fill that void, but I do feel part of that void because there was a hunger from the street that needs to be filled. You know what I'm saying? And I'm the ear of the street. I'm the mouth of the street. You know, I am the street. I'm the hood. I'm good till I'm wood. You know what I mean? I'm there. You know what I'm saying? I'm the voice of the people. So,
Excellent, brother.
I'm gonna be that. You know?
In 1999, DMX would actually work with Death Row. On March 4th, 1999, Suge Knight and Death Row dropped the compilation album Chronic 2000 Still Smokin'. On this is a track called Gotta Love Gangsters by The Realist with Scarface and Richie Rich. DMX was actually supposed to be on this track instead of Scarface and Richie Rich. DMX recorded his verse, but it would end up being scrapped from the album. The original version never ended up leaking either. The Realist spoke on this the day DMX passed away in April of 2021 on Instagram, writing, DMX was solid as they come. He was originally on Gotta Love Gangsters from the Chronic 2000 before Richie Rich and Scarface. Maybe it'll come out one day. Rest easy, brother. You did it your way. There's a rumor that Suge Knight's beef with Def Jam's president, Lawyer Cohen, actually prevented this record from happening. Suge Knight allegedly spit in Lawyer Cohen's face during a negotiation for Snoop Dogg to sign him to Def Jam for $7 million. Suge also built DMX a lowrider with his dog Boomer on the trunk, and Lawyer Cohen bought it from Suge Knight for $100,000. After that, nothing else happened, but I want to know, who do you think would have won this beef if it went down? DMX or Tupac?